Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. This is the May Green Christian Allotment Workshop based on my allotment down in Bournemouth, and it's learning as I go along, so I'm very happy to learn from everybody else as well and to share sort of successes and failures. And we start with a little of a summary of a book that I'm working through called The Bible and Ecology. We can go to the next slide, which is about, he's called Richard Bauckham, and he goes through the Bible and he finds lots of amazing passages that, you know, in a way you know, but he is showing you how it means that God wants us to care for creation, not just sort of use it and throw it away. So this one is using Jesus in the wilderness and a quotation from Mark. And he was there in the wilderness 40 days, tempted of Satan, and was with the wild beasts, and the angels ministered unto him. Now Bauckham thinks that Jesus was sent into the wilderness to establish his role as Messiah before embarking on this role with humans. Wild animals are in the middle, in between the enemy Satan and the friends angels. I mean, this is a sort of a slightly different interpretation of a story we know well, and that Jesus makes friends with the wild animals, and that the phrase "to be with" implies this. And Jesus enjoying being with the wild animals affirms their independent value for God. You know, that he meant them to be here. He meant them to be part of his world. So, well, having my little allotment and your gardens and allotments with, or even a balcony with some flowers and a little feeder and bird bath, you know, frog ponds, insects, slow worms, a fox, are all on my allotment. And these are all small steps in helping with this vision of being with the wild animals as Jesus was in the wilderness. So we go on to the next one, where I'm examining soil again. Oh yes, there's a picture of some wild frog ponds, lots of tadpoles, insects and birds come and drink from them. I've got 3 water butts now that feed to them, so they're kept topped up all the time from rainwater, because you can't use chlorine tap water in frog ponds. It will kill them. So the next one, next slide. Oh yes, there's some pumpkins all trying to plant themselves, but they went in before I left for France, where I'm talking to you from, with amazing modern technology called hot spotting or something. Anyway, the next slide. This is a runner bean structure, part of the new mandala. I try and do a sort of permaculture idea of mandalas rather than rows. You build up a selection of keyholes that you plant into. I have done diagrams of them in previous workshops, and I can always send anyone a copy of that. I've got them all saved, so I can email it to anyone. So I've got the beans are going in a semicircle on one side of the allotment, and on the other side I've planted corn in a semicircle, so it's a mirror image, so it sort of makes it look more interesting. Okay, so the next slide. There's some runner beans, French beans, courgettes, corn and lettuce most of them have been planted out, but not all of them, because I had to go to France and I didn't have time to plant them all out. So what I've done is I've banked them up with more earth so they can keep growing in the seed trays, and I'll plant them out when I'm back. And I've got friends watering them. Okay, next one. Yes, this is something about the soil. As we know, I've talked about last year, the WHO think, and others think, that harvests are going to collapse within 60 years. And it's also mentioned in the book Farmageddon by the Compassion in World Farming, that we're squashing the soil and breaking it, and the tilling releases carbon, and industrial farming methods deplete the soil of healthy microorganisms and minerals. And before I left, it was in the news how water companies are now releasing microplastics into the soil as a byproduct of human manure spread on land that contains wet wipes and the like that are not filtered out at the sewage plant. They've got all these little microplastics in the wet wipes. When I see my daughter and her friends and their babies, I give them a lecture about wet wipes that I'm sure they appreciate. So we can restore soils. It's not the end of everything. We can use permaculture methods, and I'm trying to get rid of the couch grass on my allotment, and then I'm going to have a ground cover of red clover and strim it and grow into it. And there's a wild form that's probably better than the usual one, as it's shorter and hardier. So this year we've got a sheet mulch. That's another permaculture idea I've talked about before. Instead of digging, what you do is you lay down a new layer of straw, horse manure, and volcanic ash, and you plant into that. And I'm strewing red clover around the fruit bush patches in the hopes that that will grow up instead of couch grass. And well, we'll see if it works. So then the next slide is continuing about, oh yes, those are some broad beans coming up. Cabbage, kale, lettuce. They're all doing very well, actually. I left just as 10 lettuces were ready, and it was so annoying because all of the EU regulations say we can't bring things in. Well, actually, I went pulled to Cherbourg, so I could have done. Nobody checked anything in the end, but there were all these dire warnings of not to bring things. So hopefully everyone's eating them at home. Okay, next slide. Now, volcanic ash is something I've got very interested in, and I've been using it. So there's an imbalance within the soil. We're not using fields to lie fallow, as with the old crop rotation system, which we used to do. And the modern methods are also depleting the minerals from the soil, according to various researches that I've put links to. So we need to remineralize the soil we plant into. The various links suggest that we're having about 50% less minerals in our vegetables now than we used to, with all of the modern fertilizers used instead. So volcanic ash is what I use, and I get it at the allotment shop. I'm very lucky I've got one. I'm not quite sure where else. You could probably get it from garden centres and things, but I get it at cost. So I didn't use formula because, as I said, I'm not very good at maths, but I put 5 sacks of of volcanic ash. It's sold as rock dust over my very large allotment during the autumn and during the spring. So hopefully that's enough. So when the red clover, comfrey and nettles all grow up, that we use as manures in different ways, they will be remineralized. And a lot of those you can put into a rainwater butt and turn it into tomato and strawberry feed using a separate rainwater butt to your usual one, or you'll just get clogged up. So put it somewhere where you're not going to sit out, because it can get a bit smelly. You can also just leave the clover, if you strim it, to let it rot down and improve the soil texture, as with the soil that we put down last winter. In fact, actually, the straw I put down last winter that I've been worrying about in case I get a lot of slugs, well, I probably will, but it has so improved the clay soil. It's been much easier to plant into. It's not just sort of hard lumps of sort of rock hard soil anymore. It's sort of made it more malleable, more sort of soil-like. So that seems to work on clay soils. It might not work on sandy soils so much, because I don't know. But if anybody's got sandy soil, they can report back. Okay, so next one. So the broad beans and the onions and the peas didn't make it. That's the thing with growing things. Some don't. Now this is, I was sort of thinking, well, who uses farming on volcanic soil? Last month I did a bit about French allotments and the history of them. So this is a Kenyan farm in the Menengai crater, which is a vast volcanic shield, one of the largest calderas on the planet. A caldera is where the magma is kept under in a kind of big shield, and it probably isn't volcanic actively anymore, but it releases a lot of, well, the soil is all formerly volcanic. They're a farm that are trying to also go organic, as well as using the volcanic soil they have, and they've studied it, and they're going ahead quite well. They've got their own seeds, they cultivate them in greenhouses, and they grow on this lovely mineralized soil. And they think their 100% organic produce tastes much better and produces less waste, as it's all recycled. And those are two links to see their farm. And we've got a picture next of their farm that I think it shows how well they're doing. Okay, so the next slide. Yes, well, we've planted out quite a lot, but there's about 10 trays still to go that are waiting. And with some help, we put up some frames for tomatoes, cucumbers, French and runner beans. So now they're there and they're pretty permanent. So what we'll do is, as with the idea of crop rotation, it'll be too difficult to rotate the structures. So we'll just rotate the vegetable groups. And if you look at previous workshops, we've discussed the different plant groups that are in different groups that you rotate each year to minimize plant diseases. We've been planting all of these things. Yes, when you plant, if you can take some of the soil that's in the seed tray and put it in with the roots, it's called, sort of the idea is home soil. So they sort of have a little of their past home to go with them. It's supposed to make them feel more comfortable. I don't know, you know, but it's something that I've always done. And put the soil back and press down firmly, but not too firmly, just, you know, just so it holds down well. Water it, and if trying the red clover, throw some of that down, and hopefully all your vegetables will come up. Okay, so that's a picture of the tomato posts. As you can see, they're quite solid. They've now got tomatoes growing up them, thanks very kindly to Barrett, who planted them, one of my helpers. And the next slide. Plant fertilizer. I sort of talked about it briefly. So when you get the comfrey, red clover and nettles, you can cut them, trim them or cut them and put them in a water butt on a stand or bricks and add rainwater and leave it for some weeks, about 6 weeks, and then you'll have good tomato and strawberry feed. We've got 3 water butts from my art studio to feed the frogs and for the fertilizer. But these are the links about the soil depletion, with especially in terms of mineral loss. Those 2 links, if you want to study it more, they talk quite well about how we're not getting enough minerals in our vegetables. So even though, you know, there's the 5 a day argument, you might having to be eating about 20 a day to get enough minerals. And not everyone can afford all that. So it's better to just grow some with some volcanic ash in what you grow them in. Okay, so the next one. These are the potatoes. Now Ellie has been very good, one of my helpers, with the potatoes. We had a disaster last year. Poor Michael, I didn't follow his advice and they didn't turn out very well. But this year we put banks on either side and we put the potatoes, spaced them out, and then each couple of weeks we've been covering the shoots with soil. So the idea is that if you let the shoots go right up, then all of the energy will go into them and not the tubers, which are the potatoes. Well, we'll find out. And then we ran out of soil, so then we took some of the straw and put that on top before I left. And when I'm back, we'll dig up the ones we planted at first and see if it worked. And we also added some potash from various bonfires. When I have to burn various papers and things, I keep the ash, and that's supposed to be good for potatoes as well. Okay, so that's how the potatoes are coming along. These are all the links. I have also put in some links that say that we've got all the minerals we need. We don't need to do anything. Everything is all right. Carry on as usual, to be balanced. And that's where you can get the volcanic ash from various places. And I think the last one is quite a big paper to read on that. So here are some tomatoes, and most of them have been planted out, but there's still a few that we're growing in the greenhouse, just in case we get tomato blight on the allotment, then we'll have some in the greenhouse as well. And I'm also growing peppers in the greenhouse because we put them out last year and they didn't do well at all, even in Bournemouth. I think they need a greenhouse. But I'm quite windy where I am, so maybe if you put them out somewhere sheltered, they might do all right. And I had various disasters with strawberries. So now what we've done is we got this huge box on free cycle, which we somehow managed to get into the car by taking out the spare wheel and drive home. And it's a wooden box and we're growing the strawberries in that. So hopefully they'll do well in there. Okay, so next slide. Yes, this is the prayer I've been doing for Ukraine each week each month for the last few months as well. You know, they're all suffering over there. It's quite a nice one. And this time we think we've got the YouTube channel so that can play, and it will play a bit scrappily because that's the way it happens with Zoom. Zoom and YouTube don't seem to get on so well. But what we can do is we can say the words along with the slightly scrappy sound. And then if you want to, you can listen on that YouTube channel. It's a very nice chap singing it very beautifully. You can listen to that later. Okay, so we could say the prayer and listen to the singing at the same time. Lord, oh, the great and almighty, protect our beloved Ukraine. Bless her with freedom and light of your holy rays. With learning and knowledge enlighten us, your children small. In love pure and everlasting, let us, O Lord, grow. We pray, O Lord Almighty, protect our beloved Ukraine. Grant our people and country all your kindness and grace. Bless us with freedom, bless us with wisdom, guide into kind world. Bless us, O Lord, with good fortune, forever and evermore. Amen. Does anybody want to ask any questions first?
Excellent.
Yes, please. Marisa, just you talked about the benefits of red clover. Is one also that it's a legume, so it's nitrogen fixing?
Yes.
And it does. Red and white. I've actually got white clover that I'm going to be planting. It's I can find the link for it and I'll send it to Barbara and she can send it to you. It's supposed to be like an original plant rather than a hybridized one.
Thank you. And very briefly, a second one about the benefits of nettles. Are they beneficial to other plants while still growing? So I have quite a few growing around my strawberries. Do I need to cut them down to mulch the strawberries, or?
I don't think so. I don't know, actually. I mean, I've got quite a lot of nettles growing too, and they seem to not disturb other things, but I'll look into that. Thank you. That's a good question. But I just mean I go around with a strimmer and I strim things when they get quite big and overshadow the other plants and just gather it up and chuck them all in a water butt.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions?